Welcome to Chop Shop Motors. My name is Clay, and it's a Saturday morning. Gonna work on the 49 Ford. I just came out here. Forgive me if I have chocolate on my face. I had a breakfast cupcake. That's in the hot rod manual of how to be a good hot rodder. That's typically what we have for breakfast on a Saturday morning. It's something that we're not supposed to have. So today we're gonna dive into the wiring harness kit. I'm gonna kind of pull it out on the bench and we're gonna see what all is in it, what questions come up as I'm laying it out, and things of that nature. It's Scottsdale, Arizona. Summer's here. It's pretty warm already. It's early in the morning, but it's pretty warm out. And humidity's up a little bit, so it's gonna be less than perfect out in the shop, and that's all right. We'll stumble through it. My guess is I will look like like a swamp monster by the time we get to the end, and I apologize for that. And so let's see what the wiring harness looks like. Okay, let's see what we have here. Pull over a stool. Maybe this will work. Kind of, sort of. A little bit of me. More important is what did we get? All right. We ordered a wiring harness from Speedway. I don't know who actually makes it. So we might be able to tell. The instructions are branded Speedway, so I mean it's probably some little shop that's making it for them, which is great. If we look at what came with it, we do have a layout of what circuitry we have and what we could expect inside the box. We also have some instructions for how to wire different pieces that won't come in this, so ignition switch, dimmer switch, things of that nature. This is a column mounted ignition switch, so it's geared toward people who run IDIT columns or GM columns. And then we have instructions for headlights and turn signals. Again, it's geared down here. You can see it's geared to people who run a GM turn signal switch. So we don't have any of that, which is all good. No problems there. All right, let's see what's in the box. Okay, firstly, we have a plethora of wire ties, which that's not really that many wire ties considering what we're going to be doing. A couple connections, see if you can see them, a couple connections for the headlights, some butt connectors, a big purple wire, which is typically on GMs the starter wire, and then a big red wire, which on this case is probably the power wire to the back of the ignition switch off the solenoid. We're going to run a Ford solenoid, so we'll absolutely be pulling off of that instead of the starter solenoid. All right, that's part one. All right, then we have everything else. You have part one and everything else. So in here are all of the other items. So this is a 12th circuit. So what that means is you could plug in 12 different items that you would have be fusible. We won't be running many of these things on this. We won't be running. So this has a left turn signal, a horn switch, left front signal, left signal indicator, right front signal, right signal indicator. So I'm not sure why they have all those on a dedicated circuit. Hazard has a dedicated circuit, as does turn flasher, left rear turn, right turn, brake switch, third brake light. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, we'll check. So sometimes the instructions don't crosswalk directly, and you have to do a little sleuthing to figure out kind of where they were going with it. This particular turn signal switch has been, they sold this, not switch, this kit. Speedway has sold this for 10 years probably at least. So there's a bunch of them out there. All right. It's pretty affordable. It's nicely done. I've used a couple of them, so we'll navigate through it. All right, can you kind of see it? Oh, not really. All right, so the piece that I like about it is it's a pretty compact, singular fuse box that is already pre-wired. I'm not endorsing or comparing it to others. This is the one I chose. I don't get a lift from Speedway. I wish I did. I buy enough crap from them. But I'm just showing you what I'm using on this truck. So we'll pop off the cover. It uses the modern type fuses, and they're pretty compact, pretty easy to get to. Couple relays. It's gonna it should work out quite nicely for this truck. The downside is that typically it's nice to mount the fuse panel where when you're under the vehicle or inside it and you need to service it, you're looking right at it, right? So right into this, and it's pretty thick that way. So we're gonna have to look and see, do we need to address something? I've done them where the fuse panel was on a hinge plate and it spun out when you need to address it, and that made access to it a little easier. But we'll see. I have an idea where I want to put it, and it just kind of depends on how it lays out. So I haven't put one of these in a 49 Ford, so I don't have the luxury of any pre-work that I've done on other ones. So that's the fuse box. As we come down, everything's tied together in bundles, mainly for packing purposes. So you're going to have, let's see if we can kind of figure out what we have here. So this is going to be under the dash items. So you're going to have a bunch of under the dash. We're going to have different clips for flashers, turn signals. We're going to have, so this is, when I say turn signals, as in flasher for turn signals, flasher for emergency. Sorry, I'll be more clear. And then we're going to have all of the connections that will go to a turn signal switch. So in our application, we're going to use vintage turn signal switch, and we're going to rewire it. And so all of these connections will get terminated, and we'll use a different connector to allow us to plug and unplug that turn signal switch. I am a firm believer in having sub-components be removable without having to cut the wires. So we'll use spade and receiver type connectors on all of the turn signal wiring, so that down the road, if someone, it probably won't be me because this truck will be in another state, needs to replace that turn signal switch or pull it out for any reason, they can just unplug it. So that's that. We have probably start wires. These look like neutral safety switch for a GM. So if you were doing a GM column, boy, this would be really easy. You just go in there and plug them in, and that's awesome. In some respects, it's nice when you're not doing that, because you don't have to live with the length of wire that the manufacturer gave you, which is typically going to be the universal length. So this length will work in most applications, and you have a lot of extra wire. Well, when I do wiring, rewire, that stuff makes me crazy. So I want the wire to go like it were in there and installed for factory. And I mean, we're building a truck that is, you know, it's not, there's nothing about this truck that needs anything super exotic. They're just going to enjoy it and preserve it for the rest of its life and the rest of their lives. But we want things to be nice and tidy and look as if someone actually knew what they were doing, rather than just stuff a whole bee's nest of wiring up under the dash. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, we have a bunch here and a bunch there. My guess is this is probably going to go to the back of the vehicle for tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, all that stuff. That's probably some of this. And this one, good chance it's going to go under the hood. This one, I don't know where. We're going to find out. Let's figure it out. All right, let's see what we have here. So if we look at our harness, there was a kind of an overview schematic. So, there we go. We've got some various gauge. All right, here we go. So, this big one right here, the most wire is actually the fuse panel and front of vehicle. So this is going to be really important under hood, headlights, etc. The orangey colored one, which is this one, orange green, is rear vehicle. Makes sense. Got green, brown, yellow. Those are taillight wiring colors. Then instrument and dash is this smaller one, which we will basically connect to our vintage dash, and we're going to have to put some voltage drops in it as well to make it work. And that's great. So my plan now, I've unboxed it, I've looked at it, it looks like everything's here. This is ignition and lights. So it looks like everything's here. So now the next thing I'll do is I'm going to get inside the car and I'm going to figure out where we're going to mount the fuse block. For me, that's step one. So we'll start with step one, and then I'll bring you back after we've made some progress there. Right, here's the progress on the wiring harness bracket. So this is what I built for the wiring harness to the fuse box to mount to. So this is going to slide up inside where the kick panel goes. There's a brace on 49 Fords that runs from the firewall back to the A-pillar, and this is going to mount on the inside of that, and it's going to tuck in there. You won't even see it. And then the receiver, this is a box that comes on the fuse box. I'll call it the receiver, fuse box receiver. That will slide down inside this and screw into the bottom of it. And that will allow me then to take the fuse box, which is here on the end of the wiring harness. You can kind of see it there. It will snap into this assembly like such. So somewhere like that. Hard to tell with the camera angle, but it'll snap in there and make it secure. So I will put this piece in the truck now, and then I'll take you in there and show you. It's going to be a little hard to see it, but I'll at least show it to you before I snap this harness in. So let me put that piece in. This piece I made out of just sheet metal. This was actually this was actually a 71 Buick Skylark hood originally. Now it's living a life on a 49 Ford, so it's going backwards in life. So that's what that piece started out. A few trims and pulls in the brake, and we end up with a little angular piece that sneaks up in there quite nicely. Okay, so let me tuck it in. here is a close-up look of that receiver, the bracket, and that plastic receiver that the fuse box will snap into down inside the kick panel. As you can see, it's almost invisible. And on a project like this, that's kind of what we want. We want the least intrusive addition as we improve it, modernize it a little bit just for dependability's sake. And I mean, there may be some restorers out there, so you see two little screws. There may be some restorers out there that say, oh, you didn't have to do that and you could have left it all original. We could have, absolutely. I am a firm believer in you can make the old stuff work. But for this application, I'm not sure who's going to be driving it, working on it, be the caretaker of it. We want it to be as simple for whoever is the caretaker to take care of it, and updating to 12 volt and a little bit more modern wiring and things of that nature I think will benefit that. Alright, I'm going to put the fuse block in and start to tuck some wires, and you'll be able to see that piece once it's in there. So I'll stack it in there and then I'll bring you back. I may even put the camera on and just do a time lapse and let you watch me fight that wiring harness in. That ought to be worth a few laughs. All right, here we go. Hopefully you can see this. I know the light's probably not ideal for you. Try to compromise it there. Hopefully that works. It's kind of in the front of it, so I'm going to put it up here. Okay, that might work, at least for now. All right, let's put this harness, first part of this harness in. So I'm going to have this harness come up here and go along the A pillar and into the dash area, which will work quite nicely. There's a channel back here that will allow that. So we'll start with that. So this can snap in here, in theory. It's pretty cumbersome at this point because everything is tied together. Wiring harnesses are typically pretty cumbersome anyhow. And then the fact that I have to wear glasses to see makes it even worse. Okay, so it clips in there. It doesn't, I was listening for a really loud clip, but apparently that's the clippage. So let me get the cover on it and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. Okay, cover's on, that piece is in. So now we have the fuse panel, and that piece of that metal, that panel L bracket is a little flexible, but it's also super sturdy. The whole fuse panel is, that housing's all plastic. So you can't get too forceful with it or rough, or you'll just break the whole panel. So there's none of it that is, you know, super tough. So you got to be kind of careful with it. You don't want to rough it up. All right, let's run some wires. Let's see which ones are which. Okay, fuse panel front of vehicle. All right, so that is this big one. Okay. This is the part that'll be painful to watch. So this is going to go up. And we're going to go through the firewall and take it out into the engine compartment. Okay. And basically what you're doing is you're taking the wires kind of by length, because you're not really ready to mess with them yet. You're just trying to get them into a general location. And for those of you who would say, I would never do it that way, I totally hear you. I am not facilitating a tutorial on this, I'm just showing you how I do it. So, go into the engine compartment, pull some through, and see what kind of mess we still have here that's not coming through. There is a seat spring right here that's broken that gouges me every time, so we're going to put something over that too. And if you think that this is going to turn into a cluster while you're trying to pull it through, that's pretty accurate. Okay, you kind of get the gist of that. I'm going to kill the camera for a little while and run some of these wires. Here we have a bit of progress sometime later. So the single bundle is going up behind that kick panel. You might be able to see it come out the firewall. Maybe not. No, I can't see it super well. Yeah, going out through the bulkhead and the firewall, the original bulkhead. Big bulkhead that has a grommet on it coming out. And it's already starting to tell us a little bit about where it's going. So this clump, tan, brown, green, these are turn signal and probably headlight wires right here. Over here you have neutral safety switch, start, power, things of that nature. So we have, sorry I wasn't really showing you where it was at, right here. Purple, red, those are ignition. Probably some of them are sender wires. So we sort of have it separated into blobs on the floor. But that's kind of how this works. You just take it a piece at a time. The reason, originally I was going to put the fuse box on the passenger side, that's where I like it. But on this particular truck, everything is on the driver's side. So the solenoid's over here, the bulkhead's over here, battery pickups over here. So it just didn't make sense to run it on that side, even though it's easier to get to. It should be pretty easy to get to over here as well. So that's kind of the progress so far. So now I will look at the other clumps and start to figure out where they're going to route. So I'm working away from the fuse box and getting those pieces kind of identified and sorted out, and then we'll start to plug in actual subcomponents like the ignition and things like that. It is time to check out the progress. So I hope you can see this. That is the fuse box. It is at the bottom there, kind of hidden. All of the harnesses, those 4 harnesses, are snaked up the inside of that A pillar. And then you get up here and you can see where they, I think you can see where they come out. And I'll get over to the other side and show you what that looks like. So here it is coming over. It's going to have a hard time focusing probably just because there's so much in close proximity. It's coming over that brace, from the door post to the firewall, and then it's going into that firewall bulkhead. Most of it is. There is one group of wires right here that are coming out of this hole because these are all instrument wiring. So I'll deal with that separately. And the other ones are flashers, engine harness, and rear harness. So engine harness and front lights. The rear one is really just tail lights, brake lights, etc. All right, let me show you what it looks like from the outside. We've got a few clumps of wires coming out. I think you can see that. A few clumps of wires coming out. We have this harness right here that is separate. It's going to, I don't even remember which one that is. I'll have to look. Tail lights, engine harness, and we're just now, you kind of see we have clumps of wires all over the place. Now we'll just start hooking up a wire at a time. And as you can see, there's hundreds of them, so it gets a little tedious. This part was a bit tedious. I hope this video isn't too painful. It just shows some of the process that you go through, that I go through to wire up an old vehicle. This is how I do it. I don't know if it's how anybody else does it, and I don't know if anybody else, you know, everybody else might look at it and go, oh my God, that's horrible. And that's fine. So this is how I'm going to do it, and I'll end the video here. This portion, this chapter at least of pre-wire is done, and we'll do another video as we attack one portion of the harness. It's going to take me a little while to do it because I want to make sure everything's right, and we'll bring you along for the ride. I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors, and we'll see you on the next project.